Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
All right, it is 11 o'clock and a big one today as the Edmonton Oilers go up against the Toronto Maple Leafs. We got to build a little EST parlay for that one, I would think. Nasty chat, what's going on? Thank you very much for being here. And, you can text us anytime as well, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. Huss is on the final legs of his journey back. I think he's going to be back for Winnipeg Sports Talk today. We're coming in hot for that. Pat Gregoire is going to pop on here in a little bit on the Lock Shop today as well. And, busy day in the NHL. So if you want to dive into a few of those, we can slide in there. We're going to recap what happened yesterday in the National Football League as well. Who let you down in yesterday's games? Big Yuka says, Mike Evans really couldn't have had just 2 more receptions, eh? Man, we got hosed if we're going to start with bad beats. This is not even a bad beat. This was a 10-leg parlay me and a couple buddies had watching the game last night. And we hit 8 of them. And we hit like 6 of them in the first half. It was, let me lay it out for you. I think I have a picture of it. Let's see. Yeah, this stung a little bit. Actually, not a little bit. This stung a lot. Baker Mayfield, it ended up being a bet builder that was paying 8-1. It was plus 800. Baker Mayfield, passing touchdown, just 1. Got it. Baker Mayfield, 200-plus passing yards. Got it. Cade Otton, 20-plus receiving yards. No sweater. Targeted him a ton. Dallas Goedert, 3-plus catches. Got it. Smith, 50 receiving yards or more. Got it. Hurts, passing touchdown. Got it. Jake Elliott, 4-plus kicking points. Got it. Bucks over 12.5 points. Easy peasy. And then we needed Mike Evans, 60-plus receiving yards. He had that deep shot that Baker Mayfield put into his bloody hands that he somehow let slide right through. That would have covered it. And then we needed a Jalen Hurts anytime score. I thought there was a tush-push coming somewhere along the way in this game. So we missed on the Evans 60, and we missed on the Hurts anytime score. That sucked. Big time last night. That would have been a nice way to sort of wrap up wild card weekend. So, yes, Mike Evans let me down. Baker Mayfield did not, though. Baker Mayfield was extremely impressive in that game last night. And as a Detroit Lions fan, I'll take a look at some odds here. One of the boys from Coolbet will pop on here at some point. They're just texting each other right now. I think somebody's going to slide in. We'll take a look at these lines for next weekend in the National Football League. Obviously, we'll set up the game. And nasty chat. Let's get rolling here today. I see Mark. I see the Wolf, Duck Dad, and who was it? The Wolf. The Wolf is getting it now. He's starting to figure out the YouTube stuff. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe. If you're watching the Lock Shop later on or you're listening to the Lock Shop, make sure you subscribe to Edmonton Sports Talk. We are almost at 6,500 subs. So let's keep that rolling in here as well. Markson says, at least we hit Kincaid right away. I had a big Kincaid with White over 60-yard ticket. The Bucks shut down the tush push. Yes, they did. They did. Now, with that being said, how is there not a flag there? The guy had Jalen Hurts' whole head. It wasn't a face mask. It should have been a flag for grabbing the entire head and twisting it around like he was steer wrestling at the Calgary Stampede. That was absolutely insane. They missed on that one. But overall, as a Lions fan, watching Baker Mayfield sling it concerned me a little bit, considering Detroit's weakness would be in the secondary and Baker Mayfield's willingness to throw that ball down the field. It was quite something. We can talk about the Cowboys. We can talk about the Eagles, some of these guys that were disappointments. But, my goodness. Duck Dad's in and says, Spency, are you there? Did you ride the Bruins in regulation and that Avs over 5.5? Bit of a sweat, but it cashed. Yeah, Duck Dad, you laid that out during the game yesterday on the Lock Shop, I do believe. 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999, or hit us up in the nasty chat here as well. If you guys want to build a little bit of a parlay in the nasty chat today, I'm sure we can get that over to the boys as well. I got to lay out a little EST parlay, I would think, for the Oilers and the Leafs tonight. So we'll get into that one. And the early lines in the National Football. You can take a look at a bunch of the different odds up right now. Let's see here. Coolbet exclusives. We'll get to the exclusives a little bit later on. They got 4 NHL exclusives tonight, so we've got that going for us. The NHL tonight, pretty decent sked. Not as busy as maybe a usual Tuesday because there are a bunch of games yesterday, but still easily can put something together over there. Kraken and the Rangers, the Avs and the Sens, the Ducks and the Caps, the Kings and the Stars. The Islanders will be with the Jets, the Sharks, Hawks, Coyotes, Flames, and then the Leafs and the Oilers later on. The total in that game sitting at the big number 7. One of 2 7s on the board tonight. Colorado Avalanche, Ottawa Senators sitting at a 7 right now. This Buffalo-Kansas City line is interesting. Right after we finished watching that game yesterday, the guys I was with were like, let's guess the line. Guess the line. What's the line going to be for the Bills-Chiefs game? And we actually said 2.5. And it came in at 2.5. So we had a pretty good read on that. Here are your opening lines for this weekend in the National Football League. Texans, 8.5-point dogs on the road in Baltimore. Pretty big number, not going to lie. Early sense is I'm kind of feeling the Texans a bit in that one. I don't know, I'm not winning, not outright, plus 320 on the money line as a dog. But with CJ Stroud just being, what did they say? He is him or whatever. Can CJ Stroud keep it within 8 against the Baltimore Ravens? Maddie, can you send the link to Jake? I think Jake's going to hop on. Eight and a half early on. I got to dive in this game a little bit more. We got to dive in all these games a little bit more. But Texans plus 8.5. I could see that number moving down a little bit by the time things close. Packers 9.5 against the Niners. Your early thoughts on that one? Feel free to chime in the nasty chat. Packers offense is good. Is there a backdoor cover there maybe against the Niners to get within the 9.5? Something we'll discuss a little bit later on in the lock shop. Tampa Bay Bucks, 6 points on the road against the Detroit Lions. And I think I'll probably be on the Bucks plus 6 there too. Some decent value on the dogs here, at least to start the week. I think that line probably moves. And then the Chiefs, 2.5-point dogs on the road in Buffalo against the Bills. Can the Chiefs end the Bills' season again? They certainly could. Will they? Another conversation. Can't wait to hear what Huss has to say about the Chiefs and the Bills. Markson says that Packers line is already shrinking. Did it open at 10, Mark? I didn't see it. I wasn't looking for it yesterday. I'm not sure if it opened at 10 or not. But there's a early look. The totals in these games. Texans, Ravens. Totals at 44. Lowest total of the week. Packers, Niners. That's rated at 50. I think I'd probably lean over on that one. Bucks, Lions, 48.5. Lean over on that one as well. And the Chiefs, Bills, 45.5. That's a close one. That's a pretty good number. NFL futures updated after yesterday's action. Here are your Super Bowl odds right now. Well, let's start with the conferences. AFC Conference, the Ravens plus 110 to win it. The Bills plus 230, the Chiefs plus 330, and the Houston Texans, the old long shot at 12 to 1 to win the AFC. Niners, minus 182. Lions, 3-1. Packers, 9-1. And the Bucks, plus 1,000. San Francisco is the Super Bowl favorite right now at plus 175. The Ravens, 3-1. The Bills, plus 575. The Chiefs and the Lions, both sitting at 8-1 to win the Super Bowl. That'll make for an interesting lock shop later in the week with myself and Huss when he returns. Packers, 25-1. Bucks, 28-1. And the Texans, 28-1 as well. So that's the overall NFL scene setter as we head into another week of NFL playoff action. Jake from CoolBet has joined me, has slid in here on short notice today. Jakey, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
What's going on? Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine, man. Yep. Big hockey game tonight for your Toronto Maple Leafs.
Is there?
I didn't
even know.
I wasn't even aware.
Listen to EST this morning. I didn't even hate listen to that friggin' song that's now stuck in my head.
Oh, the Leafs rap
song.
the Johnny Cash song. Yeah. Yeah, there was some good. That was actually a really well done song. That was pretty funny. A little bit of shade there at the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll get into that. We'll get into that.
Dusty, taking my morning walk. I heard the song 3 times during the show.
Man, that's a long walk. Nice. You must go on a long walk.
Yeah,
that's great.
I walked for an hour. So. Yeah.
Do you actually go for an hour-long walk every day?
Starting like I'm back into dieting and working out.
Yeah.
Getting strict, getting back.
So are you running? Are you running a bit too, or is it just a walk?
Just walking, incline, and last 2 mornings have been an hour each. So
nice. Look at you.
No, I'm just teasing. No, I did listen to EST, obviously.
Yeah.
And I caught the cool line of the day. I caught Craig Button there for a bit. So. I got the song a few times. I was like, this is the Stratus, the Matthews and McDavid, and the whole thing. It's a treat, real treat.
That was fun. That was a good one. That was put together. That was a lot of fun. All right, let's look. We'll get to the hockey a little bit later on. Obviously, we got to dive into this Leafs team right now, where they're at heading into this game against the Oilers. Like I mentioned, the total for that game tonight is sitting at 7. The Oilers have only scored 10 goals in their last 4 games. They won them all, but they've not been scoring a lot lately. I feel like tonight might be a night to get the offense going. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. Let's go back to yesterday. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills. What did you think of the Bills getting the job done in the fashion that they did?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say probably many people think it was as expected from the Buffalo Bills. The Steelers, it's been a bit of a fugazi last couple seasons with the Steelers, I've found. Mike Tomlin is a very impressive coach, but it's come to these wild card games, and we all know that 7 seed was never used to be there. It's obviously only as recent that we've got the 7 seed making the playoffs. So, it reared its ugly head yesterday with the Bills, kind of doing what they did to the Steelers. That first half was ugly from the Steelers. I mean, outside of that the blocked field goal that I think led to the touchdown, they had nothing going on offense. And every time they did get something going on offense, Dusty, it was a turnover. It was a bad interception or it was a bad fumble. I remember the Fryer move fumble, and I think someone else fumbled. It was a little messy from the Steelers. And what do you go as if you're a Steelers fan? Like, what do you think? Is it time to move on from Tomlin? I don't know what the quarterback situation, like, do you trust Kenny Pickett's going to be the guy next year? Just a lot of questions for a team that, isn't going to get that high of a draft pick with, how well they finished the season and made the playoffs, right?
I think I'd probably stick with Tomlin. But yeah, some of these other, like, there's these bigger picture stories for, like, the Eagles, who completely pissed away their second half of the season. And obviously the Cowboys are always going to be the Cowboys. I feel like this season was a success for the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Nobody expected the Steelers to do what they did or put up much of a fight anywhere along the way, and they did. So I think probably a step in the right direction there for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you do get caught in that middling of, like, are you just always going to be a team that wins between 8, 9, 10 games and not get any better and not get any worse, which is a frustrating spot for a fan base to be in. Coming out of that game for the Bills, where are you at on them? Not so much picking the game or anything against the Chiefs, but do you like the spot the Bills are in right now, considering how hot they were down the stretch? Do you think they're primed to actually get the job done against Kansas City this year?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I like the spot. They're at home finally, right? I think
Yeah.
that's the big storyline is okay. Well, Buffalo, you've had your chances on the road at Arrowhead. Now you're back at home with a chance to take out the Chiefs in the playoffs, as they've done to you the last couple years, and get to an AFC Championship game and see what happens, right? So, I mean, obviously, they're in a great spot. And I mean, I know we don't want to look too far ahead, but I'm not a Bills fan, so I have the right to look ahead. If Houston does find a way to upset Baltimore, you could be hosting an AFC Championship game, right? So you're one win away on that side from 3 home games and a trip to the Super Bowl on the line.
Yeah, it's interesting the way I can't wait to get Huss's thoughts on the Chiefs and Bills when he's back tomorrow here on the Lock Shop, because that's going to be a fascinating game. Can't wait to break it down. We'll see. Do you think that line moves much? It's at 2.5 right now. I kind of thought that's where it would be. It's kind of where I think it should be. I don't know if that's going to move much off the 2.5.
We always talk about it, right? It's like, how do you need some big things to happen for a line to move off to 2.5, especially if it's going to go to 3.5, right? So, I'd agree. I think we'd see it at 2.5. Maybe the Chiefs to get some love as dogs, and maybe it goes to 2. But I wouldn't expect it to be a pick 'em by kickoff. Like, I think this is right around where it is, and you can even see now -2.5 is -118. So if anything, it's going to move to 3 before it moves back towards the Chiefs. If you look at it in that sense, obviously it depends. People like the Chiefs at 2.5 or even money, or even if they like them at 3, it's -125 at the 3. So could swing back towards the Chiefs, but I imagine like you said, I think this is where the number kind of we all expected it, and that's where it sits right now.
The Bucs convincing victory against the Eagles. In their previous 2 games, Tampa Bay had only scored 1 touchdown. And then they went out and looked like Super Bowl champions yesterday offensively. Baker Mayfield was an absolute stud. Mike Evans completely let us down from a betting perspective. But I thought the Bucs looked very impressive, but I just can't get it out of my mind. Well, that's just because the Eagles have become absolute trash right now, right? Like, that's how much stock are you putting into, wow, the Bucs look great, as opposed to, I wouldn't read into it too much because Philadelphia could not get out of their own way for the last 2 months.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot because I do think, the Bucs showed something last night that I think we weren't all expecting. That defense looked really solid, although no AJ Brown for the Eagles side, which made a significant difference. The offense, the tackling by the Eagles, I don't even like. We could probably break that down for the hour.
It was non-existent,
it's
man.
unbelievably
Like, just brutal.
So yeah, it's one of those weird spots where it's like, were the Eagles ever good? They were 10-1 at one point, right? And I think that was absolutely the case. But ever since Sirianni does the whole yelling at the Chiefs fan, I know Huss is going to probably have a victory lap tomorrow.
Yeah.
When he's yelling at the Chiefs fans on his way out after beating them, it's been a bit of a nightmare for the Eagles, and obviously, it showed in that game last night. So I don't think the Bucs are as bad as we made them out to be, although they only won 9-0 against the Panthers in the final week of the season in a must-win spot. Like, you think they should have blown them out, no problem, but it doesn't really matter. It's all about, this is all the whole thing about, get in and see what happens. I see the number. I know we haven't got to it yet, but I see the number at 6, and I think you broke them down just before I jumped on here. Those big dogs. I like all 3 of them.
Me too. It's exactly what I said. Yeah.
Like the 8.5, 9.5, 6. Like, this is the divisional round. Like, these teams had to win a game to get here, outside of the buys, obviously. Like, I wouldn't shy away from some of these dogs. I know we had a ton of blowouts in the wild card, and maybe that's the reason why some of these numbers are the way they are. But the Texans had a huge win over Cleveland. Baltimore hasn't played their starters in what would be 2 weeks now, I suppose. Like, I don't know. Even maybe something the chat can jump in too here. maybe this is something where you're looking at, if you believe in the rest versus rust, something you look at is maybe the first half for the Texans, right? A first half spread or something along those lines. And then, if Baltimore finds it late, then, and then you might lose it for the full game. But I don't be surprised if either the Packers or the Texans are in these big spreads, and the Bucs for that matter against the Lions. Like, no offense to your Lions, Dusty, you got the job done. Super happy for you guys, but 6-point spread.
Yeah, I said earlier, man, at 6 points, I'd take the Bucs. I think the Lions will win that football game, but what the Bucs showed offensively against the Eagles and Baker Mayfield having a little bit of that swagger, I think Tampa can certainly hang around. That's for sure. So yeah, I like it at 6. Now of those 3 lines, like I don't think it stays at 6. I think it'll get a little bit smaller. Like some money's got to come in on the Bucs here at 6. Which one of those other 3 bigger lines? Like we talked about the 2.5 in the Chiefs-Bills game, probably staying where it is. We've already seen, Mark already said, the Packers opened at 10. Now it's 9.5. Which one of those lines do you expect to move the most of the 3 biggest dogs out there?
Texans.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's the one.
Yeah.
I think it already opened at now. I know it opened at 9, or maybe I don't know what it opened at, but this morning it was 9.
Yeah.
Pat and I had looked them over and had a brief discussion on it. Already down to 8.5. I wouldn't be surprised if that's at a touchdown by kickoff.
Oh yeah, that's
like
a lot of
7.5.
Like, yeah, that's
7.
rolling down. Yeah, I could see it getting to 7.5.
I don't know. I just think like. I think people are big on Stroud now. They saw what he did in that Cleveland game. He's got so much poise. He's got great touch. Like he has it all, and it's his first year. It's crazy. It is a rookie quarterback in only his second playoff game, but that can be the beauty of things where it's like there's no expectations. He can just go out there and ball, and I think that's when he's at his best. It's like, hey, CJ, you go out there and ball. You do what you need to do, and we'll see where we end up by the end of the game. He's already won.
Yeah.
He's won 1 playoff game. Huge playoff game against the Browns. The week before was a friggin' playoff game.
That was a playoff game too, and he won that. He looked great. Yep.
Right? And he won that game. So, like, to have him sitting with 8.5 points in his pocket, I'm not going to be shocked if this game comes down to the final possession or, whatever it is. Even if it's a backdoor with the Texans, 8.5 seems like a lot of points. Like, I think that's the number. I like it right now. And if you do feel, like if you're in the chat, if you're people listening, and you do feel that the Texans number can move and you like the Texans now, then you can take it. But there's always the possibility that it could swing the other way and you could be getting a better number by the time kickoff rolls around. So, just monitor that. If you like the Texans, 8.5, I like that a lot right now.
Jake Bowen-Moss with Nielsen here today on the Lock Shop. We got 2 guys and a goalie coming up at noon here on Edmonton Sports Talk. I think Pete Greggy said he might pop by here at some point as well and bring him in and get Bills fans' thoughts on what happened yesterday. If you are in the Nasty Chat or you are listening on Edmonton Sports Talk on the free TuneIn app, make sure you download that. What do we do with this EST parlay? We'll definitely get into that. I know I've got some people already texting in some parlays, but I wouldn't mind. I mean, I usually handle the EST parlay for these Oilers games myself, but if the Nasty Chat any suggestions on some things you want to throw into the mix here, we can certainly do that. I see Big Yukin there saying, I like Kane to get a point or 2 tonight, over a point, -107, over 1.5 at +470. He's been struggling, but it looks like he got the bump up to the second line. So tell me about the Toronto Maple Leafs, Jake, because we had Craig Button on today, and Craig Button's calling for the coach to be fired. Button is absolutely fired up when it comes to the Maple Leafs right now. I said today, asking the question, like, are they just the same old Toronto Maple Leafs? Is that how you're sort of describing the Leafs now, or is it different one way or the other?
Yeah, it's frustrating, right? You don't want to believe it's the same old, but that's how it feels, right? I was at Saturday night's game against Colorado. They went up 3-0 in the first period, and I'm like, okay, like this is a classic. It's the Leafs. It's beat a good team. Given Colorado outside of that top 3, Dusty, it gets thin.
Yeah, it does.
I
right.
Believe the lines they were rolling out there. So Nichushkin's now in the player assistance program. I'm sure you saw that yesterday. So it's Rantanen, it's McKinnon, Drouin, is playing top line minutes. He's also playing top power play. And now they have Ross Colton playing the power play with Makar. Those are your 5 playing the power play. Ross Colton's
on the Avs power play?
The last two or 3 games, he's been top
smokes.
power play. They also have Ryan Johansson, obviously like a veteran guy, been around the league a while. But, really strong back end. Forwards, like it thins out, like I said, after those top 3. It just felt like the 3-0 lead right then when the second period started. Leafs just sat back and said, okay, like, we'll let Colorado take control of this game from here on out. Every time Nate McKinnon touched the puck, I was sitting on the edge of my seat because I was like, this guy is a problem. And sure enough, the lead just starts to trickle away. 3-1, 3-2, 3-3. McKinnon scores with 3.5 minutes to go, 4-3, and they add the empty netter late. And lose it 5-3, and the Leafs really didn't do much after the first period. So, yeah, I mean, I want to sit here and be like, they've changed. It's a different team. Keeps one bad road trip. Like this road trip goes poorly, Dusty. He might not be taking a flight back to Toronto.
That's what I was going to ask you next, man. If this and this is not an easy road trip, like with the way that some of these teams are playing right now. Is it getting to that point? It's not like they're 6th in the division or something, but is it getting to that point in Toronto now that Keefe legitimately should be this is not the guy who brought him in, right? So there's always that GM looking to possibly make a change. Is the seat that hot?
Yeah, well, listen, I was chatting with some buddies today, and, the one guy who's not a Leaf fan, he says, well, didn't they sign an extension for Keefe at the start of the year? And my buddy said, yeah, they signed the extension, but we think that was more of like hey, no need to discuss, his contract. He's got the extension and all this. A coach can be fired off of an extension at any point. When you have expectations and you're not living up to them, then something needs to change. Think about the Oilers right at the start of the season, how bad it started for Edmonton, and the sky was falling. I tune into EST every day because you love to listen when things are going bad, and I'm sure that's how Toronto radio is right now. They bring in Knobloch. You guys won 18 of your last 21, I think you said today on the show. Like, it is coming to a point where it's like, the Leafs aren't out of a moment. The break glass in case of emergency is the coach firing at this point. You're not trading any of the big guys. Nylander just signed the big ticket. Matthews got his extension. Like, I don't think Marner's going anywhere, although other people probably say different. So it's like you got to win with the team that's on the ice, and if he can't figure out a way to get it done, then it's going to have to be somebody else. Obviously, the goaltending is a bit of an issue. I know you talked about that today as well. Joseph Woll being hurt is a big you don't realize how big of a loss it is until you're starting Martin Jones every single night, and he's got to become no offense to Martin Jones. Yeah. He has some great games, but it's just like you can't expect him to be this stalwart in the back end, winning you games. Like you have to do it other ways. So. The other night they played Detroit on Sunday after the blow up on Saturday. They have a 1-0 lead. They have a 2-1 lead. They blow it. They lose in regulation. So now they're not even getting points. Where before when they were blowing leads, they were at least getting the games to overtime. You're at least picking up those 3-point spots. But now you're in a situation where you're losing in reg, and it's like, okay, well, Florida's as hot as ever. They're flying up the standings. Boston's as hot as ever. Tampa's right there. Like all these teams are right in the mix, and it's like you're not even pulling away from the group with the rest of these teams like Florida and Boston. You're almost trickling back, and you're going to end up in a wild card spot. The Leafs shouldn't be thinking make the playoffs and see what happens.
No, that's not what they're at. That's not where they're at now. Yeah, exactly. Like
we make the playoffs every year. There's nothing like it's about getting home ice, and they haven't done that. And, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. If they end up in that 2 or 3 spot, they're likely to play Florida or Boston in the first round. And, you know how both of those scenarios have gone in the past. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens tonight. Obviously, you guys are as hot as ever. So,
are you expecting the Oilers have won 10 in a row. Their power play hasn't really been clicking much during the stretch. They've only scored 10 goals in the last 4 games, but they won all 4 of them, obviously. Are you expecting a little bit of a high-scoring game tonight? Like I said today on the Nielsen show this morning, I was just like, I'm feeling like 5-3-ish here. Like the Oilers are due for some goals, and I got that kind of built into a little bit of a parlay that I'll give you here in a little bit. But are you expecting the total sitting at 7? I mean, would you lean to the over on this one? It's plus 105.
I think as a fan, you're absolutely hoping for some fireworks tonight. I know the Oilers have found different ways to get it done, and all credit to them. But I think, I think as hockey watchers that we are, I think we'd like to see some goals tonight, and I don't think either of us is going to say no to a 5-4 back and forth or something along those lines, even if it goes to OT, because the Leafs have been prone to going to OT a ton this year. More McDavid and Matthews and all these guys, Draisaitl, Marner, Nylander. More of that hockey is nothing to complain about. So yeah, I think I would lean to the over. Even given how good Skinner and that Edmonton defense has been as of late. Jones is prone to give up one or two bad ones a game, and the Oilers are likely to score one or two nice ones along with it. So both teams score 4 tonight. We're clearing that over, and we'll see what happens from there. But you hate to get these two teams together, and how much back and forth we have, and then it ends up 2-1.
Yeah, no thanks.
Or 3-1 with an empty netter. That's no fun, right? So I think even if you're building this EST parlay out and you're not sure, I think everyone's got to be hoping for goals tonight. Even we move that number to 6.5 if that's what we're thinking. But
no, that's an interesting point actually, because you could certainly do that. Before I lay out what I'm and this is a pretty basic one, I think the number will actually be okay. It's a bunch of like minus 125, minus 180, minus 224, minus 113. I think that number comes in. I'll lay out what that is here in a second. Anytime we have somebody on from Toronto, is Mitch Marner the whipping boy for the Toronto Maple Leafs fan base? Is that kind of, because Nylander's been great. Austin Matthews scoring goals is Austin Matthews. Where do Tavares and Marner kind of fall into the pecking order right now with fans in Toronto?
I think Tavares gets a bit of an easier run, just because it's coming up to the end of that deal. No one's expecting him to sign another $11 million a year deal, and if he is, it's not going to be in Toronto most likely. At how old he is, he's still got some production, still been really solid, and I think when he signed the deal, everyone was really happy. So I don't think you can look back on that one and say, oh well, they signed him to too much money, because people love to do that. But, you never really can predict what's going to happen with the cap and all those things. Marner right now, though, he's the type of guy, he signed the big deal. I think he was the third highest contract on the team and, one of the higher contracts in the league. And he's I don't think he's he's that 100-point guy. I don't think he's ever actually hit 100 points, the 99 points or whatever. He's a point producer, but it's so hit and miss. I think he had 4 points a few nights ago, and then he kind of just goes quiet for a few games, and then he'll have one of those games like tonight. You wouldn't be surprised that Marner has a goal and 2 assists, and you're like, wow, Mitch Marner looked amazing.
Look at him, yeah.
You watch for a week and be like, okay, where is that same guy? It's not a night-to-night guy, right? You watch McDavid every night, and you're like, he's doing something that you're like, wow, it's highlight reel stuff. Whether he's scoring or getting assists, whether he's not getting anything, it's just like this guy is beyond world talent. And I'm not comparing the two, so don't take that the wrong way. But it's one of those things where you're making this much money. It shouldn't be sit back, I've earned my money, because he's got a contract coming up next year, right? So at the end of next year, his contract runs out. And it's going to be a big decision, because now they've signed Matthews, now they've signed Nylander. I don't know in any world at this point that you could pay Marner more than Nylander is going to make, with his extension. So is it one of those things where they just go to Marner and they say, listen, we'll give you Nylander's deal, or we'll give you, a touch less? And I don't know. I hate all these big contracts, Dusty, because I know it's so hard to build a team around them, but it's just like, I think we talked about this on the show last week when Nylander signed the deal, and it's like, are your are your options outside of this any better than what you have in front of you? You know, like you can't really replace a William Nylander. You know, you remember the scene from I know I'm getting a little off track here, from Moneyball, when they're like, oh, you know, we got to replace, you know,
Yeah.
Giambi and Damon and all this stuff, and he's like, well, we're not going to replace, you know, Giambi and Damon, but you know, we can. You put their on base. I think they put their on base together and split into three, and it's like we gotta find three guys that can get on base, you know, at this amount. I don't think you can do that with a William Nylander. Like the talent level he has, the skill level he has, you can't just bring in two guys that would match the one guy's skill level. So you're kind of just, you know, you're stuck with the hand you're dealt right now as the Toronto Maple Leafs. And yeah, Marner is a bit of the whipping boy. To go back to the question you asked, he has become, I think it was Nylander for a bit. I was definitely on that train. You know, Shane, Pat, the guys from Coolbet, they were big Nylander guys. It's now switched over. It's Mitch Marner. And if he doesn't start racking up the points and making things happen, then who knows what happens to him at the end of next year.
Surveyor Brett watching on YouTube right now says, in the aggregate, the what?
Yeah.
Which is a great line from that from that movie. Yeah. Nice Moneyball reference. Can't go wrong with money. I watch Moneyball all the time, man. That's just a perfect movie to throw on while you're doing stuff. Like you're just working around and you just got it on TV, man. I love Moneyball. Absolutely amazing. So a few text messages have rolled in. 780-218-9999. What do we got here? This guy's got McDavid with a helper, over 4.5 goals for Edmonton, and Zach Hyman to score a goal. Chris Sadaway is in at 780-218-9999 if you're listening on TuneIn or at edmontonsportstalk.com. Some options, Dusty. McDavid, 2+ points. Oilers team total over 3.5. Hyman goal, Draisaitl point. Yeah, that's a good one as well. It's actually very similar. So here's what I'm laying out right now, and it's just a matter. And I'm gonna let the nasty chat make the call on this because I'm okay doing this. Oilers over 3.5 goals. That would be in regulation, right, Jake?
Yeah, I believe. I mean, I think we could probably find the number if it's just over 3.5.
Okay. Well, yeah, that'd be great then. Okay,
we can make that.
Okay, so let's just go over 3.5 goals for the Oilers. McDavid over 1.5 points. A Bouchard point, obviously. We always got the Bouchard point in there. And then, we could play the Vander Kane gets a bump into the second line. I see that. I get it. But I'm gonna hate myself if Kane comes back to bite this in the butt. So the option here for the nasties who are listening right now or watching on YouTube, do we play it a little bit safer with a Zach Hyman point, or do we go Zach Hyman goal against the Maple Leafs tonight? I'm going to leave that up to you. I originally had a Zach Hyman point in there to go with over 3.5, McDavid 2 points, Hyman point, Bouchard point. But I know it's going to be much better value if we have a Zach Hyman goal locked in there. So let's go in the nasty chat. If you're watching on YouTube, first of all, subscribe. Let's go there. Subscribe to the channel. We're closing in on 6,500 subs, so that's great. And then let me know what you think. Should we go on Hyman goal or Hyman assist? Duck Dad's in and says, I like the game's power play goals over 1.5 as well. The Wolf just says revenge party, which I think would mean Hyman goal. Duck Dad says Hyman anytime goal. Some of the text messages rolling in here at 780-218-9999 are saying the Hyman goal. Look, it's not worth winning if you can't win big, right? That's what they said in Mighty Ducks. So let's go. Hyman goal, Bouchard point, McDavid 2+ points, and the Oilers team total over 3.5. And that'll be the EST. That'll be the EST parlay today. You got that, Jake?
Sorry, you're gonna have to say it one more time. My bad. I saw Patty jump in.
Oh, did Patty jump in? Okay, perfect. Maddie, can you come throw Patty in too? We'll just go to a quick 3-man here. Thanks, buddy. Maddie's you're standing around doing nothing. You can throw Patty in here. All right, so we got Oilers team total over 3.5. We've got McDavid over 1.5 points, Bouchard point, and a Hyman goal. That'll be the EST parlay today. So, as the Wolf says, go big or go home, which I like that saying. And Mike Evans can go to hell. That's what I got with Mike Evans from last night. We'll get into that with Pat Gregoire when he pops on here as well. P. Greggy, slide on him, Matty. We good? No. Oh, just a sec. Maddie's only working with one arm. His other arm's still in a sling. He's faking that shoulder injury still. Hey, Patty, what's going on, buddy?
Doing good, boys. Yeah, still licking the wounds from Evans, just absolutely blowing it for us last night. Everything else was gravy.
Boys, I laid it out right off the top of the show, even before Jake slid in. I had a 10 leg parlay last night that we hit 8 of them, 6 of them like in the first half. And then we needed Evans, 60-plus yards, and a Jalen Hurts rushing touchdown. And those are the 2 that we missed on. It was a real piss off. That sucked. And
then on my Patty's primetime parlay, all I needed was a Hassan Reddick sack, and I couldn't even get that. Damn. It was tough. Two parlays that were real close. But, I want to say I know ball, and I want to come in here and say, like, look, I told you so. Otten, like, I knew he was going to have a good game. I did not think he was going to have that good of a game.
That was a wild game.
He had his way with that defense. And I know you guys have already talked about it, so I won't go too far in this. But if you are an Eagles fan, I don't know how you're feeling this morning, because just a year ago, you were in the Super Bowl. Nick Sirianni they were thinking about building him a statue. Now it's like
they were 10-1. They were 10-1 2 months ago after coming off a Super Bowl appearance. It's insane how they have fallen apart that bad, man. Like, did you see the fan that threw the popcorn on Sirianni when he was leaving the field yesterday?
Oh, I did see that. That's incredible. I mean, what would you expect? I'm sure there was. I mean, it was actually pretty crazy. I know Tampa. That's a great stadium and a little bit of fair weather fans, but it sounded like there was a lot of Eagles fans there. Like, there was a few times where the Eagles made a big play, and it sounded like it was almost a Philly home game. And the people of Philly are passionate. Say what you will, Philly scumbags, but I mean, this is tough. Like, I don't like Jalen Hurts. Like, they're saying like Jalen Hurts is now not your franchise quarterback. Like, and then at the start of the year, you're saying he's an MVP candidate.
That's going too far, right? Like, that's got to be going too far.
Way too far. Yeah. Like 8 weeks ago, you're saying he's better than Josh Allen and should be in the same conversation as Patrick Mahomes. It's like the guy's clearly injured. The team is clearly quit on the coaching staff. The play calling is just so predictable. Again, not to harp on Eagles fans here, but like, of course, I understand why you're upset and why you're angry and why you want change. But let's not forget where you were a year ago. But I don't know if you saw that tweet from Schefter last night. The amount of free agents that they're going to need to sign is insane. It's crazy. They got their work cut out. I don't think it's like the sky is falling by any stretch of imagination, but they got some decisions to make. And I don't know if Jalen Hurts giving up on him just after an average year, a bad second half where he's clearly injured. I think you got to give him another chance here.
That would be amazing. I mean, he was one of the MVP frontrunners for the first 3 months of the season. I mean, to say that he wouldn't be your guy moving forward, I mean, to me, that's just a bogus take. Now, Jake, if you were running the Eagles, would you, I don't, like, it seems like such a panic move to all of a sudden be Case Sirianni's out, because we just said all these good things about him. But as Patty said, I mean, it looks like the team kind of stopped playing for this bloody guy. So would you pull the trigger on something there?
I think you got to know that your replacement is the guy you want. I don't think you should just jump the gun. And it's funny, we were talking about the Leafs coaching situation. It might be something similar, but I wouldn't jump the gun on getting rid of Sirianni. If you're not getting the guy you want, whether that's Vrabel, obviously I've heard some Eagles fans say Belichick. Like, I think it all comes down to who are you replacing Sirianni with? Because sometimes the grass isn't always greener, and he's a bit of a dink, but at the same time, like, he's gotten a lot out of that team. Yeah, you know what I mean. But he's gotten a lot out of that team, and it wasn't a great finish to the year. But if you're coming in with a new guy next year, and the everything's changed in terms of the vibes, and some roster turnover. It might not be all sunshine and rainbows for the Eagles next year. So I would just make sure you're getting the right guy if that's what you're going to choose to do.
Patty, let's talk about the Bills, man. What'd you think? I was watching the game with a couple of Bills fans. One of them very hardcore. He didn't move for the entire second half. He's just like, oh no, here we go. The Calvin Austin TD, he started to panic a little bit, but I thought the Bills were pretty much in control of that football game the whole time. I thought you would have to be happy with that game yesterday, wouldn't you?
I mean, if you put the Bills in Kansas City or a different uniform where it's not the Buffalo Bills, if it's the 49ers maybe in that uniform, you're probably thinking this game's over. It doesn't matter. There's going to be a little pushback. It's just the history of the Bills, not just with their playoff downfalls, but it's also just the fact that you've seen this from the Buffalo Bills this year. You've seen them blow games. You've seen them allow bad teams to stay in games. So I think that's where Bills Mafia's collective clinching during that second half happened. But you're right, they did pretty much control the game from start to finish. Josh Allen, what a game from him. 275 plus all-purpose yards, 3 touchdowns, a clean, tidy game. Didn't have those hero ball moments that you think, him throwing a bad pick. I was really pleased with it. James Cook was solid. I loved how they didn't completely abandon the run in the second half when the Steelers started to figure things out, which, Dusty, you and I have talked about it yesterday. The Bills do kind of have that bad habit, whereas, a couple of times Cook gets stuffed at the line, then they say, all right, screw it, we're not running the ball anymore. They stuck to the process. They started throwing the ball a little bit more. They started getting the other backs involved, and then that opened up more room for Cook. But, the Steelers, again, they're not a great team. They're not a 10-8 team, but they're a team that just plays ugly and gross. And that's the thing we expected the Steelers to do. So overall, pretty pleased with the performance. Again, I can't get over the injuries. This defense could not be more depleted. I'm hoping that, some of these injuries that we saw yesterday weren't too serious and it was more just, the ill effects of playing in cold. But yeah, because let's be honest, man, I think despite the Chiefs offense not being what it's been in years past, this Bills defense got to get a little more healthy to welcome the Chiefs into Buffalo. First time ever we're seeing Patrick Mahomes on the road. So is he really elite if he's never won a playoff game on the road?
Oh, you be careful what you say, because us might watch back and come in hot later in the week. Jake and I did take a look at the lines here early. The Bills are 2.5-point favorites, and then actually the Bucs line has moved the other way. How about this? This was at 6 30 minutes ago. It's at 6.5 now. The Bucs are 6.5. I thought it was going to come the other way. The Packers 9.5. The Texans 8.5. Some pretty big numbers on the dogs here, Patty. I mean, are you surprised that I thought this might move towards the Lions, not the other way? Wow.
I thought so too, and I was hoping it because at 6.5, I'm like, I don't know if, or even 6. I was a little bit reluctant. I was thinking it was going to go the other way, and then I could bet the Lions, but. I'm really surprised that we're seeing the number move that way. Ravens, Houston, I get it. The Ravens are world beaters. You could argue they're the most well-rounded team in the NFL right now. But I mean, did you not see what Houston was able to do to the Cleveland Browns?
I know.
I think that line is too high. I definitely think that the Packers line is, again, 9.5. I don't know. Maybe it's too much of a recency bias where we saw those two teams play a pretty tidy game and a strong game, and then the number one seeds, maybe they might flex their muscle on Saturday night. I don't know. I think the Chiefs Bills line is perfect. You nailed it yesterday when we were talking about it in our group chat. So am I surprised? Not really, but I'm surprised how big. I would have guessed Ravens would be 6.5 or 7.5. Definitely not 8 or 9. Packers, 49ers, again, thinking that would have been maybe closer to a 7.5, 8.5. Needless to say, Patty G's tease, I'm frothing at the mouth with these big numbers because I think I'm going to tease a lot of these big underdogs. I know they're on the road, but looking at this year, I still don't know about the Buccaneers. Like, can Baker Mayfield play like that again? Like, he was phenomenal. And I think you guys talked about it earlier. Did Baker really play that well?
Or the Eagles just suck, right? Like the Eagles. The Eagles, this is why I thought Mike Evans was such a good player today, because the Eagles give up the second most passing yards in the entire league. Only the Commanders are worse through the air defensively. Yeah. And Baker Mayfield certainly took advantage of that. He just hit Otten a ton and moved the ball around very well. Hit some of those other younger guys too. All right, let's slide back over to the National Hockey League here. I did lay out a little EST parlay. Oilers team total over 3.5 goals. McDavid over 1.5 points. Zach Hyman revenge goal, and Bouchard with a point as well. That'll be available in the exclusive section when it is ready to go, and I'll pass that along on Twitter when it is up. It'll probably be up at least during Two Guys and a Goalie, so I'll be able to mention that again. Pat, what are you expecting from this game? Jake gave us kind of a good one-over of the Toronto Maple Leafs and where they're at right now and how much pressure is on them on this trip, which is not an easy one. What they get? I had it up here. They get Edmonton, they get Calgary, they get Vancouver, they get the Kraken, and then they go home and home with the Jets, which is not. So that's a tough 6-game stretch here for this team, a team that's already lost 3 in a row. So what should Oilers fans expect at Rogers Place from Toronto tonight?
Expect the unexpected. That's what you get with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think there could be 2 outcomes. It's either the Leafs that come out here and have a great performance and and really light the lamp and lock it down defensively, or it's going to be point night for the Oilers. I really think this is make or break for Sheldon Keefe and this group. Like, if I could see when they get home, they land in Toronto, and if they've only picked up like 1 win over the next 6 or 2 wins, or get embarrassed against the top teams like the Edmontons, like the Jets, like the Canucks. I wouldn't be surprised if Sheldon doesn't have a job anymore. I really do. But with that being said, say what you will about this group. Say what you will about the Toronto Maple Leafs over the last couple of years with this core. In the regular season, I will say, they play down to their competition and they play up to their competition. It seems like in the regular season, when they go up against good hockey teams that they should be playing strong against, that's where they show up. So am I running to Coolbet right now and hammering Leafs plus 136? Absolutely not. But I would not surprise me if the Leafs come out here and win on the road and start off with a bang, because we've seen it in years past that, when you start to doubt this team, they rise to the occasion in the regular season. Let me preface that. They rise to the occasion in the regular season. But from a betting standpoint, Zach Hyman anytime goal is might be the bet of the century. Might be the bet of the century.
We had it as a cool bet hotline today too. And then when I was laying out the parlay, I left it up to the nasty chat. And I was like, well, look, we can go Hyman point, or we can get some much better value in this and go with a Hyman goal. And everybody's like, of course it's a Hyman goal. Like, the season that he is having, of course he scores tonight.
I'm going Hyman first goal as well, plus 440, just for fun, because I could totally see it. Leafs could still win. Leafs could win 7-2, and Hyman's going to have 2 goals. I'll tell you that. That's what it's going to be.
I got to ask you guys as Leafs fans, because we always talk about like the contract for Hyman here. When he rolled out and dropped like 25 or whatever in his first year, we're like, oh, that's a good deal. Like, that's enough. Like, he's done enough for the number that he's at. And then, last year, another 10 or 11 goals. This year he's on pace for more than 50 right now. Might settle in just below 50. Like, is there a lot of talk in Toronto about, man, Hyman's one that got away, should have handled that better? Or is it kind of like, you already got all these big boys, they make all the money, so you don't necessarily think much about Zach Hyman?
Jake, I'll hop on this one, and then maybe you can piggyback here. I think it's one of the cases where it's like you had a high school girlfriend and you thought she was the one, and you kind of just grow apart. She finds another guy. You find you haven't quite found another girl yet, but you see on Facebook or Instagram that she got engaged. You see they get married. And you're like, you know what? It would be nice to be married with her. It'd be nice to have those kids, but we weren't meant to be together. And that's how I feel like it is with Zach Hyman, because let's be honest, they couldn't have kept him. They just couldn't have. You couldn't have justified it. They would have got crucified if they would have paid him the money that he made, because you had to pay. Well, I should say you had to. Let's back that up, Pat. They were going to have to pay some of these guys. So they made their bed. They made that decision. In hindsight, would have been better to maybe let a Mitch Marner walk, or me personally, no, I wouldn't want. I would rather have, make sure you keep a William Nylander. And the thing is, it's like, I don't know. You just never know. Of course, would I prefer to have Zach Hyman wearing blue and white right now and playing on that first line with Marner and Matthews? 1,000%. I just don't think there was a way to keep him. I don't. I really don't. And maybe that's me coming to grips with it, but it's tough, because I 100% I would love to have him. He's pretty much exactly what they're missing right now, and it is what it is.
Jake, I remember when they got him, even before, like when Hyman was on the Leafs and we talk about him, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. We'd have Drager and these guys on, and they'd be like, you want a Zach Hyman on every single line. And I was just like, that's ridiculous. I mean, why would you want to? And then you see him, you're like, oh, man, yeah, if a team had a Zach Hyman on at least their top 3 lines, they're going to be pretty happy. I don't know if you have a better comparison than what Pete Greggy just laid out, though. That was good. You see her and you go, I wouldn't mind having those kids with her, but, it wasn't the way this life was going to go. Can you top that? Because that's a tough one to top.
No, I can't top it. It just comes down to, probably couldn't afford him at the end of the day. And, now I got to listen to that friggin' Zach Hyman goal song you guys play, which talks about how he's taking the next step because he's not in the Leafs anymore. As you can tell, I'm a big fan of the goal songs from Edmonton
I was just going to say, I didn't know that the songs were grinding you that hard, some of these ones. So I think it's absolutely
that
brilliant.
Zach Hyman one comes on, Dusty, and every time that line plays where it's like, he's taking the next step because he's no longer with the Leafs, and I'm just like,
son of.
Oh my God, grinds my gears. Yeah, you get me every time. But no, Pat laid it up perfectly. I don't think I could lay it down any better than that. It's just one of those things where you're always hunting down the next Zach Hyman, and when Pontus Holmberg is playing on the top line like he was on Sunday night, you're like, what could have been, right? But here we are. You got to work with what you got on the roster, and you guys got a great one in Hyman, and I'll be on him to score tonight. Absolutely.
What else do you guys have for exclusives tonight in the National Hockey League? I think I saw 3 or 4 of them up there.
Yeah, I can lay them out. We'll probably have a few more coming. Patty and I have just been busy with some other things, but we got points for the point. Morrissey, McCarr, and Bouchard all will record 1 point. I know a couple Canadian team guys in there. The Maple Laughs. I know Patty loves this one. I think people are going to love this one. Marner under half a point. So Marner, no points. Matthews under 1.5. So Matthews 1 point or less, and the Oilers to win in regulation. That's 4-1.
And this is a full-blown hate bet.
Fans,
I love this. This is a hate bet.
It's a pure hate bet. It's a pure hate bet. We got the Bread Boys, Artemi Panarin to score, and Andrew Mangiapane to record a point. And then Stars and Snipes, Jason Robertson and Austin Matthews both to score 1+ goals. That's 5-1. So few in there now. We can roll some more out, probably as Someone Roars, our Canadian exclusive that we roll out, weekly, and some other things. And, if there's any ones you like to see in the Nasty Chat, let us know, and I can take a peek as the show wraps up here.
Excellent. Beautiful, boys. Thanks for stepping in today. Huss will be back tomorrow in all his glory, and I can't wait to get Patty and Huss on a show together to set up the Bills and the Chiefs. Also, the Detroit Lions with the same Super Bowl odds right now as the Kansas City Chiefs, too. So that'll be a fun discussion with Huss as well. You can find those NFL futures over at CoolBet. Thanks a lot, boys. Appreciate it. Enjoy the bear butt spanking the Oilers are going to give the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on in the week for Pete Greggy and Jake Bolamas from CoolBet. I am Dustin Nielsen. Good luck tonight inside the Lock Shop, and we will talk to you tomorrow.